What is up, everybody? IGN First has another Dragon's Dogma 2 video out today. It's called The Final Preview is the name of the article, and then the video associated with it. It says our thoughts after 10 hours of gameplay. So there's a roughly 10-minute video here that I want to react to. I haven't watched it yet. Again, I've been slowly kind of chipping away at the first game. There are a lot of things I really love in terms of the roleplay mechanics and some of the depth of what they're doing with RPG, and there's some stuff that I really don't like, which has me nervous about the second game because some of the combat is really janky, and I'm hoping that they've gotten the jank out for the second game because boy oh boy does the second game look really good, but the question is it going to play really good, and is it going to have a story that draws me in? Because I am always story first and RPG mechanics next, and combat is usually the least important thing to me. And it's also, if the combat isn't that great, I'm not a big fan. I don't really like the combat in the first game that much, so I'm nervous, but I'm also excited. I don't know. We're gonna see what we see. This is the another reaction video in this series, watching the IGN Firsts. They've been doing a lot of stuff around Dragon's Dogma 2, so let's take a look at this. Here we go.
I thought it would be a simple side quest. The owner of an apothecary enlisted my help to find his lost grandson who had been taken by wolves. As I followed the trail, I heard a screeching noise from up above.
Dude, wolves in the first game. There are so many wolves. And so many wolves and so many goblins. That is not a wolf.
All of a sudden, I'm in a battle for my life against a griffin. It's a monster that's far too strong for my party to handle, but we fight and claw and hold our ground until finally we get it to retreat. I breathe a sigh of relief, then set up at the nearby camp and sleep till nightfall.
That was
that
interesting.
Sleep is then interrupted by the same griffin back for revenge.
I didn't see a camp system in the first game unless I just haven't ever gotten that far. That's cool.
That fight somehow boils over into another battle with a white, who proceeds to beat me within an inch of my life before I finally take him out, just as the sun rises after an epic 20-minute battle.
That's a lot. A 20-minute battle to me just sounds overkill. That was one of the things I don't really love about the first game is how long some of the boss fights are. They just seem to be these massive, long, grindy scenarios where it's just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat as they go through cycles. I'm not a big fan of the combat in this game. I do love the RPG mechanics. Don't love the combat. First game, I should say. I'm not talking about the second game. But if you had to just do a 20-minute fight, that seems...
None of this was part of the actual quest involving saving the boy. It was just a series of events that cascaded into one of the most unforgettable encounters I've ever had in an open-world action RPG. And it was just one of the incredible encounters I experienced during the 10 hours that I spent adventuring through Dragon's Dogma 2's fantastic...
Oh, I'm playing a sorcerer. Look at that. He's floated up on its head. By the way, the plan is to play a sorcerer through this. I've had fun with a sorcerer in the first game. So this is a preview after 10 hours.
While I didn't get to start from the very beginning, I did get to begin with the creation of my own pawn. Pawns, for those unfamiliar with the first Dragon's Dogma, are AI-controlled companions that gain gear, skills, and experience from your game, and then take all of that with them online where they can be hired by other players to be companions in their own games. I'm not going to spend too much time on either pawns or character creation, especially because we've already made those videos. But what I will say is that pawns are integral to one of my big takeaways, which is that exploration and discovery in Dragon's Dogma 2 feels much more natural than ever before. First and foremost, there are no more quest boards. There are no markers that appear above people's heads letting you know who's got a quest, and any sort of symbols placed on your map to let you know of points of interest are kept to a minimum. As such, you'll really rely on your pawns and NPCs to guide you through Dragon's Dogma 2's world.
Oh. I also heard the creative director saying something about fast travel the other day, saying that he doesn't believe in fast travel because if you need to fast travel around the world, you haven't made your world interesting enough. So it sounds to me like we're going to have a pretty rich, deep game here.
These will, more often than not, be the ones to approach you with opportunities for side quests as opposed to it being the other way around.
Oh.
You wouldn't happen to have seen a pretty stone. You there! Did you see an urchin in a cap?
Pawns will also point out objects of interest,
Just yonder looks to be a good spot for harvesting ingredients.
boulders that can be destroyed to find a path that leads to treasure,
If you
Okay.
need that destroyed, I'm your pawn. Shall I assist?
or if they already have knowledge of a quest from their owner's game, they will straight up lead you to those quests if you give them the go-ahead.
Oh,
All
wow.
of this leads to a style of exploration and adventuring that feels very organic and appropriately rewarding, very much in the same way that Elden Ring and the two most recent Zelda games do.
So I gotta say something really quick. That's really cool. It said if they have a quest from their owner's journal, it'll do that. You can do that quest. It'll lead you to the quest objective if you let the pawn do that. That is actually, this is what I come back to about the first game. There were some really cool RPG mechanics at play, even though I don't like the combat per se. The mechanics are really impressive. But the torches on the belt thing too gets me every time.
As alluded to in the intro to this preview, you also never really know what to expect once you set out to pursue a quest lead. The very act of exploring beyond the safety of a city's walls is unpredictable, dangerous, and enticing, which is why it's so exciting.
I'm totally playing
Over
a
the course
sorcerer.
of my 10 hours, I got to play with a total of 5 vocations: Fighter, Mage, Warrior, Sorcerer, and Trickster.
Sorcerer.
Which you can watch a whole other video all about. Unlike the first game, which had you unlocking advanced vocations simply by leveling up the base ones, the 2 advanced vocations were actually unlocked via a quest. After visiting the Vocation Guild, I was given a quest to retrieve a greatsword and an archstaff, and after doing so, I unlocked both the Warrior and Sorcerer vocations.
Nice.
I don't know if all of them will be unlocked this way, and I didn't get a chance to unlock any of the hybrid ones, like Mystic Spearhand or Magic Archer, but I definitely like the idea of not having to grind vocations in order to unlock others.
Me too.
My personal favorite of the vocations I got to try was by far the Warrior, who maintains the fantasy of being the great sword-wielding badass that brings giant beasts to their knees with just one charged strike, but also adds a few more tricks to their repertoire. Director Hideaki Itsuno
Very
heard
Conan.
feedback that the Warrior didn't feel like a super viable vocation in the first game, and thus worked hard to give them some new elements to bring out their strengths. For starters, we've jacked up the Warrior's offense and destructive
Nice.
power to the point where it's unfair. In exchange, its abilities take a little longer to execute. This makes the vocation somewhat difficult to use, but that's where the tackle comes into play.
Hey, that's
If
just
you're
that's
attacked,
nothing wrong
you
with
can
that.
use the tackle to cause an enemy to be stunned instead of being stunned yourself, making it easier to get into the vocation. The tackle he's referring to is a new ability called Barge that allows the Warrior to execute a quick shoulder bash, even
Nice.
while they're charging an attack, to interrupt and potentially stun any.
Press R1 to use Barge. When it lacks in power, it makes up for in swiftness, and it can also be used as a follow-up attack after a strike with a greatsword. A warrior should barge their enemies without fear, as they have increased resistances and are less likely to flinch for the duration, giving them ample opportunity to counter.
enemy that's trying to stuff their attack. The vocation, after all, is built around being able to charge up massively powerful attacks that deal humongous damage, so this small change goes a long way in making it a little easier to get those big shots off. My favorite new addition for the Warrior, though, is a passive skill that allows you to swing regular attacks much more quickly if you're able to precisely time your next button press with when the attack actually lands. This gives a nice rhythm to the Warrior's combat and allows a skilled player to compensate for the typical weakness of having a very slow attack, while still making those very slow and powerful attacks still feel like they have their own place in the Warrior's skill set.
That reminds me of the galloping horses in Red Dead Redemption 2, because if you just did it, it would burn all your stamina for the mount, but if you timed it, you could avoid that.
Also, if you're like me and enjoy the feeling of leaping off cliffs and slamming your weapon down on a monster's head, this is the vocation
I saw
for
this,
you.
yeah, I saw this in the video preview. Kind of cool.
I unfortunately didn't get deep enough into the Sorcerer vocation to see any of the really big, crazy spells that they're so beloved for, but what I really enjoyed about the Sorcerer was the addition of a unique skill called Galvanize. This allows you to go into a stance that recovers your stamina extremely quickly.
Very nice.
Which is especially useful for the Sorcerer due to the fact that their spells take so long to cast. To shorten those spells, you need to use a skill called Quick Spell,
Nice.
which allows you to spend stamina to reduce a spell's cast time.
Okay.
All of this leads to a careful balance of preparing to cast a powerful spell, using Quick Spell to shorten its cast time, and then making note of whether you have enough stamina to cast another spell, or whether you have to break away and use Galvanize to get your stamina back up. It's a fun dance that made Sorcerer feel a lot more active than in the past.
I will say though, as much as like I said, the combat feels way too long for me in the first game on some of these fights. When he mentioned the 20-minute fight at the beginning of this video, that's the stuff that makes me nervous. Otherwise, the sorcerer is a hell of a lot of fun to play in the first game. I've really enjoyed getting more powerful spells. Visual effects look good for a 12-year-old game, and the stuff that I'm seeing here from the upcoming game looks phenomenal.
Dragon's Dogma 2's open world is enormous,
Morrowind.
reported
Sorry,
to be
not
roughly
Morrowind.
4
Skyrim.
times the size of the already huge map in the first game.
4 times the
I
size
don't doubt that
of
claim
the
in
first
my
game.
experience of checking out the map and wandering through just a small portion of it. It's big, but it's also dense, with exciting encounters both on and off the beaten path that were paced nicely so I wasn't constantly slowed down by back-to-back battles, but I also never went too long without having something to engage with. One thing that was important to Eat Snow and the team at Capcom was making sure that the players really felt the distance that they were traveling as they explored.
With no fast travel.
Fast travel is very limited, like in the first game. You can only travel between discovered port crystals, and every time you do, you must expend a fairy stone, which are highly valuable items that don't come cheap and aren't easily found. Another option you have for getting around is using an ox cart, which is relatively cheap, but they are limited in the fact that you can't choose where you travel. The main one that I found only went from the capital city of Vernworth to the checkpoint town, which was far to the west. You also have to consider that ox carts are not a completely safe way to travel, as they often will be ambushed by all manners of beasts.
That's kind of
Of course, you can just hoof it on foot, which is where you'll truly feel the weight of that distance,
Yeah.
especially due to the new health restoration mechanic known as the loss gauge.
Okay.
In the first game, you'd be able to heal your entire life bar by using health restorative items, and recoverable gray health with spells. In Dragon's Dogma 2, however, every hit diminishes a portion of your max health, and the only ways to restore it are either by finding a campfire to rest at, or returning to an inn and resting for the night. Fortunately, if you rest at a campfire, you can also cook some meat and get some much needed buffs, in addition to restoring all of your life.
Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload, or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. That looks like literal steak.
There's a risk involved with resting at a campfire as well. The
Also,
flames may attract monsters to your campsite, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this preview, you could actually wake up to an angry griffin coming back to finish where it started. What it all comes down to is this. Virtually every action in Dragon's Dogma 2 has some combination of a cost and a risk tied to it. Fairy stones are risk-free travel, but they come at a very steep price. Ox carts are a low-cost but moderately risky method of travel, and traveling on foot is free, but extremely risky. Then you must also consider whether it's worth it to press on in a questline with low max health, or backtrack to a town to resupply, whether you should avoid fighting the giant tanky ogre, or risk it all on trying to bring it down for both the experience and rare material reward, whether you should keep on the less dangerous beaten path, or take a detour into the unknown. In the 10 hours that I played, these were very compelling decisions to have to make. But the real test will be whether those decisions remain compelling or turn exhausting in hour 20 or 30.
Thank you. That is a very important thing to note, because as much fun as it was to do like some of the things in Jedi's Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, God of War Ragnarok, those games were very fun linear experiences that are like 50, 60 hours long. But there are certain aspects. Another good example is Assassin's Creed, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla. Main storyline's really fun, really good. The repetitive side quests get repetitive, really old, really fast. This kind of stuff makes me nervous, because I can tell you after, I can't remember how many hours I'm into the first game now, like 30 hours maybe or so. And I found myself really turned off by some of the things, like the incredibly long travel times without any sort of fast travel, and just the general 20-minute long combat sequences. So it'd be interesting to see if those can pan out to be fun experiences, or if this is going to be a game I need to expect to spend 6 months playing.
When the map has expanded dramatically, and you still have quests remaining to complete in a town that you're super far away from. Hypotheticals aside though, I love just about every moment that I spent playing Dragon's Dogma 2 during this preview window. It doubles down on everything that I loved from the first game. makes some smart improvements to the way quests are handled and how you explore its giant world, and the little taste that I got of the vocations is a tantalizing reminder of why Dragon's Dogma is one of the best in the genre when it comes to delivering on the various power fantasies tied to the classic RPG archetypes. Even after all I played, I still feel like I just scratched the surface on what Capcom has in store for players when Dragon's Dogma 2 releases on March 22nd.
It's not too far away now. I'm excited. Like I said, I got at least excited enough to play the first game. I'm deep into it. I don't know if I'll actually finish it before this comes out. We'll see. I mean, I'm gonna give it a good shot throughout February. I don't have a ton of things on my plate for February. I really want to get through this. Um, the second game looks really good. I've heard so many good things from so many people that I've been willing to keep chipping away at it, even if there are things I'm not a huge fan of. And everything I've seen from the IGN First series has got me thinking that it's looking like it's going to shape up to be a really big RPG for the first quarter, for this first part of 2024. So I'm really looking forward to diving in, and of course we'll see what else unfolds throughout the rest of the year. We know in the fall we've got things like Stalker 2, the Indiana Jones game, Avowed. Those are all things that are coming later in the year. So this is a good one to get into here in the early part of the year. So I'll be playing it here on the channel. So stick around for all that stuff. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams throughout the day. We do different things at different times here and on Twitch. So don't forget to check both places. Check out all the playlists here. Join the Discord. I'll see everybody in the next one. Stay safe. Happy gaming.